Wait, so Abe is dead and so is Will? Let's theorize. Let's start once again by taking a look at the events of the story. I'll put a key on the screen anytime a key moment occurs. One like this. Keep them in mind since I'll be returning to them once we start theorizing. The story begins in a noir setting, with a narrator letting us know that Abe, aka the detective, has been chasing William ever since the events of Who Killed Markiplier. We learn that it's been several years since the events of the night in the manor, and that William's full name is William J. Barnum. Abe then refers to the chase, and how he never manages to catch Will even though he's been so close on so many occasions. This is our first key moment.
I can't count how many countries I've cornered him in. Couldn't tell you how many times I've had him in my big, strong hands.
Abe refers to how Will has gone through a large array of different personas while he's been on the run, but that he always returns to the same habits.
Drinking, fighting, flirting, dancing.
Walking into what looks like a 70s roller disco, Abe gets his first look at Wilford MOTHERLOVING Warfstache. After an amazing dancing sequence, Abe raises his gun into the air and fires a bullet. The crowd disperses, but Will doesn't seem fazed, he just goes on dancing. Abe orders Will to get off the stage, which he does, but the dancing just keeps going. It is not until a bullet is fired into some of the audio equipment that Will comes to and actually starts listening. Will then asks,
"Do I know you, friend?"
I said get down and... What?
Obviously Abe is in shock, but moves on to say,
You're under arrest for the murder of way too many people to even count!
which leads up to an array of key moments.
Well, that's just ridiculous. I would never kill anybody.
Oh, is that right? Well, whatever you say, buddy.
Having Will in custody, Abe sets off into the night to get him back to his office. During the ride, we hear Abe's inner dialogue. This is where things get odd.
I only get one night with him to fill the hole in my heart he left behind. It's finally time to get some answers.
Did we date at some point?
No, we didn't date. The hole is a metaphor for when you shot me in the...
Will is somehow listening to and communicating with Abe through his thoughts. Eventually Abe gets so freaked out that he tases Will once again, bringing us to his office. After an interrogation session with Will, going through the many names of his personas, he finally remembers Abe, and then starts to sip around the room in a sort of teleportation kind of way. Abe starts going mad, not understanding how Will seems to not apply to the laws of physics. Eventually he fires a shot at Will, at point blank, but to no avail.
No. The grown-ups are talking.
Will asks Abe if he can recall their closest encounter, to which Abe replies,
When was our closest encounter?
Yeah.
Before this very moment.
Yes.
That's easy. It was when we, you...
Abe, desperately holding on to his sanity, asks how any of this is possible, but Will simply tells him that he doesn't know. Will then makes the revelation that Abe couldn't have survived a shot to the heart. As Abe starts to drift off into deep thought, Will makes him snap out of it and asks him to stop worrying so much and just accept his fate, accept everything that's so strange and weird, and just to relax and have some fun. Cutting back to the disco, Abe puts his gun away and starts dancing. Going from Who Killed Markiplier to this is a drastic change in style, pace, and filmmaking. I love this story, and I'm happy that Mark decided to keep it going. But now it's time to theorize. While I was writing a theory on how Abe and Will are stuck in either some sort of purgatory or straight up dead and in the afterlife, I started scouring the internet for clues. Eventually I stumbled across another theory, and honestly it just straight up won me over. So here it is.
Get out of my head!
Remember when Abe tases Will and we end up in his car? I don't think this was just a clever editing trick to note a scene transition. I think this moment is a part of Wilford's physical defying nature. He's already shown this a bit in the video, when Abe was talking to him here. Interestingly, Abe doesn't quite notice it first. He also doesn't notice the physics-defying scene transition, but he does notice when Wilford, quite hilariously, starts responding to Abe's inner monologue, and it freaks him out so much that he tases Will again, unintentionally triggering another physics-breaking moment.
Name after name after name after name.
William J. Butterfield, Wilson Jackson Bartholomew III, Wingleheimer. Abe thinks these are aliases, but I don't think they are. I think that Will has forgotten his real name, which again is William J. Barnum. The first two aliases are strikingly similar, same initials, and I think that Will was trying to make some sense of his memories and put them together in his head. As he says later,
memories start to get jumbled after a while. But I do remember you.
Will only remembers Abe after Abe calls him a murderer. That's what triggers him and allows him to remember that night. What makes him look at the photos on the wall and recognize them. He recognizes everyone from the manor, saying that they all look so young. He recognizes Celine, admits that he still has feelings for her, though he adds that she'd probably carve his heart out if she saw him. During this scene and the moments that follow, we see Will more lucid than we've ever seen him. However, he's still not all there, and even though he remembers Abe, he doesn't remember everything. At least not properly.
Things get jumbled so easily. The when, the where, the why, the how of it all. Who can keep track of it? I wonder what he's up to. You see him?
He still thinks that Damien is alive. He still thinks Celine is alive. He still thinks that he didn't kill anybody. That he would never kill anybody. For as sane as he seems when he's talking to Abe, the part of him that properly understands loss is gone forever.
How the hell do you keep doing that?
This video demonstrates Will's complete lack of physicality better than anything we've ever seen. Throughout the entire interrogation in Abe's office, he's appearing and disappearing, camera tricks and editing magic brilliantly shows how he's moving without really showing us. Will's teleporting somehow, but when he does move, you don't notice him move, you just realize that he's gone. And then you see him where he is. That's not just the camera. From how Abe reacts, we know that that's how it's really happening, especially from the scene in the club. I've seen some people ask how Will could be in two places at once, but I maintain that he's not in two places at once. He was teleporting around, not obeying the laws of physics. Abe didn't notice at first because he was so focused on catching him. Will is weird. I get the feeling he's like a mirage or an illusion sometimes. You think you see him, but if you properly focus, you'll see you were wrong. Also, apparently Will's breaking the laws of physics isn't just limited to the actual physical world, but involves the laws of time as well.
Oh, you don't remember? That's okay. Probably hasn't happened yet.
Something is up with the timeline, and Will, he knows that. He gives Abe a spoiler for a train. And when Abe starts to spiral and not understand, Will knows exactly what to ask of him that will make him see how out of it they both are.
What would you say our closest encounter was before this very moment right here?
Remember that first key moment.
I can't count how many countries I've cornered him in. Couldn't tell you how many times I've had him in my big, strong hands.
Abe wasn't just being metaphorical for the sake of dramatic narration. He literally can't count. He literally cannot say how many times he's come close to catching Will, because he doesn't know. Again, it's like a mirage, or if Doctor Who is more a thing, like a perception filter. He doesn't realize it until it's pointed out to him. But Abe doesn't know where or when he is. He's so obsessed with chasing Will that he doesn't realize that Will already knows. That something's very broken about the way they're both experiencing the world. When Abe tries to pinpoint what happened on the chase, Will asks,
3 years. What year was that exactly?
knowing that Abe won't be able to answer.
Life needed a bit of madness.
Of course, Will can't necessarily answer either. As he said a bit before this, when Abe asks,
What the hell's going on? Huh? I don't really know. Honestly, I don't understand anything anymore.
Abe knows that what's happening is impossible, that it's impossible to know things that haven't happened yet. And so does Will.
Exactly. Just like it's impossible to survive a bullet through the heart.
When Abe realizes that he shouldn't have survived, he starts to drift away again, but Will pulls him back and says,
It was a bit of shock for me too. Life needed a bit of madness, but why should death be any different?
This is where things get confusing. I've seen some people suggest that what's happening is actually all in some sort of hell or purgatory, where they propose that Abe's spirit refuses to move on after being shot in Who Killed Markiplier, still obsessing over the chase and catching Will. And while the purgatory theory certainly is a possibility, I think there's something else going on here. I believe that Abe and Will are still alive, in some fashion. Maybe not fully, it's really hard to say. We're still so unclear on what the entity in the manor is capable of, but we've had so much evidence from the end of Who Killed Markiplier when Abe says,
Colonel, you can hear this. You better run.
and the fact that Will himself was never dealt the fatal blow. All of this says to me that both Abe and Will are alive in this story. So, if they're alive, then why did Will say,
Why should death be any different?
I think that Will thinks they're dead. Maybe not all the time, and maybe not all of him. But a part of him definitely thinks they're dead. Because what's happening is impossible. He knows that. He knows that nothing makes sense. He has these moments of lucidity that just break through and shed so much light onto everything. But when he's in those moments of lucidity, he realizes how ridiculous everything is, and assumes that they must be dead, because they can't be alive. That makes no sense at all. But here's the thing. He doesn't really care, and he doesn't think we should either. Right here, he's talking to Abe.
But I think the stress is getting to you a little bit.
Then, in the middle of this line, the camera shifts. The whole video's been shot in a traditional style, with back and forth shots, cuts, edits, etc. But as Will's finishing this line, it cuts back to the A Date with Markiplier and Who Killed Markiplier camera style, of being in perfect first person.
You need to unwind. You're a freshly born fawn trying to find your legs in a world that doesn't make sense.
Mark is looking directly into the camera, directly at us. Will knows his life is ruined. He even thinks that he might be dead. He knows that nothing makes sense anymore, but instead of facing that, he chooses to forget. He ignores his warped reality and forgets by
Drinking, fighting, flirting, dancing.
Thank you so much for stopping by. The latter portion of this video is a retelling of Iron Woman 359's original theory on Tumblr. It's completely amazing and it won me over very quickly. I have intentionally left pieces out so that if you want to have a proper read, there's a link in the description below. If you want to see what I make in the future, clicking the subscribe button and the little bell that may or may not be below this video would really make my day. Thank you so much again, and I'll see you soon.